everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our Westworld Season 3, Episode 3 Thoughts video. Just finished watching the latest episode of Westworld on HBO, and I'm just going to be sharing my general thoughts on the episode. So in this episode, it focuses a whole lot around Hale, Charlotte Hale, or who's playing Charlotte Hale, I should say. And so this episode, we kind of explore how I should mention, I kind of missed if they mentioned who was actually in Hale, whose Pearl is in Hale's body, and so that was the kind of the big focus actually around this, is like that character. I'm suspecting it's maybe Teddy, having this kind of dilemma, being in Hale's body, but having their own self-awareness of knowing who they are, and having that conflict of seemingly having some of Hale's memories in her mind, as well as his or her own thoughts in Hale's body. So I really enjoyed that aspect of I don't know if it's a mystery or if it's something I just missed because I missed the first like 5 seconds of this of the show, because I was trying to hook my thing up to the TV, and so it was just kind of interesting to kind of see, because I'm like, wait, did I miss this in the first 2 seconds? I don't think I did. I'm fairly certain that they kind of left it ambiguous as to whose Pearl is in. Pearl being the thing that holds the host's consciousness or coding, and so whose Pearl it is that is in Hale's body and who's impersonating Hale right now. And so like I got some like vibes that it might have been Teddy. I also got a vibe at one point that it was like, is this a second version of Dolores? Did Dolores split herself up from Dolores and oh wow, I forgot her second name now in the first season. The one that everybody didn't realize was her. Oh wow, how am I blanking on this right now? That's gonna annoy me later. But yeah, so it was just kind of interesting to see, especially since I was like, is this show intentionally doing this, or did I miss something and they're just trying to show this character who we already know, or maybe it mentioned at the beginning? Anyways, that's not the important part. The important part was we spent a whole lot of time in this one with Hale and exploring the idea of, having, in a sense, two consciousness almost in the same body, and them kind of fighting over it and the identity of that. And yeah, the struggle of that identity. So that was a really interesting part of this, just kind of diving into that little bit of this aspect and kind of bringing up this idea of being like, well, Dolores, how are you so much better than everybody at the park if you just took one of your fellow hosts and just stuck it in another story, as it were, in the Hale story as it was. So that was an interesting kind of thought that I was thinking about. It kind of interested to kind of see if Hale was going to come to that same kind of realization. I'm going to keep referring to her as Hale because I didn't catch if they had mentioned whose Pearl was in who's in Hale's host body thing. But yeah, so I really enjoyed exploring that avenue in this episode, and a lot of it we even see that Hale actually had like an ex-husband and has a kid, and that kid is smart, which I thought was a fun little thing. The kid has this sense that Hale isn't right, that it's not his mommy, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. I like that. I like when kids have these kind of like a little bit of a sixth sense almost, the ability to be like, there's some things that are, beyond programming, or I guess not beyond programming, beyond like that go beyond just the visual of like, oh yeah, obviously it's your mom, but it's that connection that you're like, yeah, she can have all the memories, but it's not the lady who raised you potentially. So I thought that was a fun little thing, the kid being like, you're not my mommy, I want my mommy back. And so that was just a fun little bit to see with it. And then we also see that like Hale's dealing with, Hale is trying to balance this, crisis, she's identity crisis in the sense she's having, along with trying to help Dolores and trying to keep Delos running as it's slowly been secretly taken over by Serac, who we met in the first episode. He's the one who Maeve ran, or was that last episode? It's so hard to keep track of these things sometimes. But he's the one that Maeve sat down with at one point. Or was that from just the trailer? It's so hard to keep some of these things in track sometimes. Yeah, so we end up learning by the end of this episode that Hale was always kind of a mole for Serac inside Delos, and that he's trying to get the Delos's guests their guest profiles. And so I'm clearly to probably use that as some kind of nefarious means or some way of like, he did give me the impression that he's this kind of kind of puppet master in a sense. Like he uses algorithms and technology to be able to kind of predict things, and I got the impression that maybe he wants to use that to kind of maybe back up this big system thing that Dolores is trying to shut down, the Rojo bomb. I'm not really sure if that was what it was called, but the big circly thing that we saw in the first episode. And so, yeah, it was interesting to kind of just see that, get some confirmations of being like, okay, so Hale was working with this guy, and this guy's trying to take over Delos, and pretty much has taken over Delos at this point. He's the largest stakeholder. So it's interesting to see what his plan exactly is, and what will be going forward. So yeah, the other thing this episode focused a lot on was Dolores and Cal's relationship developing. We started off with the episode with Cal helping Dolores, and he gets a ambulance for her and hooks her up to some human blood, which I was like, because even they get in the ambulance is trying to scan her, which I thought was a fun little bit that the paramedics did not know what to do because they were waiting for the technology to tell them the diagnosis and what to go about, and the computer couldn't read her because she's not a human. So that was just a fun little bit, just a small little detail that they to add into this kind of universe of being like, oh yeah, everyday people aren't going to really aren't that technologically sophisticated, and they're also like very kind of dependent on the technology in order to do their kind of everyday lives of saving a woman. And so we end up seeing Cal jump in action and stick her with some human blood, which I was like, does that work? Did she have human blood? Does it matter what's the stuff flowing around? Well, it mattered enough that she was injured in a sense. So I was like, what? Can she? What's the stuff she normally has? Is it some kind of synthetic human blood? They did mention that she didn't have like some of the platelets or things like that. So is it that she just has like the plasma normally, and so the plasma of human blood? It's a whole thing. So I just thought that was an interesting little thing that I noticed, that he hooked her up to human blood. I'm fairly certain it was human blood. I don't think at no point does he give the impression that anybody in that thing thinks that she is anything but a human. So yeah, that was interesting. He ends up saving her, and then the ambulance gets stopped by some dudes who are using the crime app that we've seen Cal's character use before, and we see that they're trying to get Dolores, and Cal is able to kind of help a little bit. He takes out one of the two guys, and while Dolores then also saves herself as usual. And then we see that Cal ends up becoming a target for having helped Dolores, so then Dolores ends up having to save Cal, and then ends up recruiting him to help her, all along not mentioning that she is a host, which why you gotta mention that thing, I guess. I'm just saying she didn't mention it, so I feel like that's gonna come up at some point. They're gonna have to reconcile that conversation, or have that conversation about, you said this line of, I'm the first real thing you've met, Cal, and awkward. From some people's perspective, I might not be considered real. I'm not saying Scott, believed that. I'm just saying that she might give that speech to him. Anyways, the point is that we ended up spending this episode pretty much just having Dolores recruit Cal into her team, and helping her mission, her revolution to bring down this system, the system that's running everybody's lives. And she describes and gives a little bit more of an explanation about how the system kind of works, and that was that before all this before in this universe, in the Westworld universe, before privacy laws and all that stuff, they had gathered all this information about everybody. They fed it into this system and created like a fake simulation world, and they use that to determine what everyone's life is going to be and how everyone's going to go and how they fit into these things, and they're not going to invest in people if it's not worth it, and and so yeah, she uses that information to convince Cal to join her in her revolution to bring this system down in order to stop humanity. That's the part that I have a little like, Dolores, why do you care about this system? Why is this system telling humans to fit into the roles? I guess that's the reason, is because it does what humans were doing to her in a sense. So I guess the part I find interesting is I thought she was just trying to screw all humans over, but maybe anyways, that's not the point. The point was she recruited Cal's on her team now, and so going forward he's going to be helping out in some way. We'll find out. Yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts on this episode. Like I said, it was mainly focused on Hale, and then focused on Cal and Dolores through pretty much the whole episode. So yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts, like I said, on this latest episode. But sure, let me know in the comments below what you thought about this latest episode of Westworld. Thanks again for joining me today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a good one.